Scratch that. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carla and I make videos on corporate soft skills, project management skills, really any kind of skills that help us get through this capitalist corporate society that we live in. And I try to do it a little bit from the immigrant first generation perspective, just because that's my background. Today, I wanted to do a video on how I take notes. Essentially, I did a how a project manager plans her week planner kind of video, and I've gotten a bunch of comments on there that have been just honestly so great, so lovely. I'm really glad that you guys are enjoying these videos. And so I got one of the comments where they were asking about how I take notes or where I take my notes. So I'm gonna do a little video on that. It's going to be very quick. It's a very straightforward kind of my own strategy on how I make notes. It's evolved in the past 10 years that I've been in the corporate world. I used to be very, very detailed about my notes and very worried about them. Eventually I built this system and process around them that has worked for a couple of years. I still continue to evolve it as I go and change it as I transition from the engineer to the deputy to the project manager. Sometimes I'm the lead. Sometimes I'm just, fully focused on the financial side of things. So it changes depending on what position I'm doing. Okay, so I have two different ways on how I take notes. One is an official meeting summary. So this is something that we're going to share with the team. It's going to go external. It's going to be discoverable, meaning that if you ever get sued for whatever reason, those are the notes that you would be providing as evidence, I guess you could call it. Essentially, these are an official documentation of the meeting. They show the attendees, the date, the title of the meeting. They're very official, very formal, and they capture the most important elements of what happened during that meeting. My official meeting minutes or meeting summary depend on the client. So I have clients that are very picky about how detailed they want their meeting minutes to be. And I have other clients that don't want a lot of details and they essentially just want action items and decisions in their meeting minutes, none of the kind of background discussions that occurred during the meeting. So you have to kind of understand your audience, understand the purpose of the meeting. Is it a more, coordination kind of meeting where you really have to pay attention to the technical aspects of a meeting? Or is it a more high level meeting where you really just got to concentrate on the decisions during that meeting, not any of the background, but more of this is what was decided to help the critical path move forward and to give the discipline leads or the team the answers that they need to move forward with the rest of the project. So it really depends on the type of meeting you're taking. One of my biggest tips about official meeting minutes or official meeting summaries is to have a template and to have a format for your meeting minutes. So my favorite format, which is something that I've massaged throughout the years, but I think I've finally gotten to a point where I'm just yes, this is what I like and this is what makes sense for most people. And every time I send out my meeting minutes to the full team, it ends up being something that I get no questions on the formatting and people really understand what's going on so they can concentrate on the content of the meeting summaries. So my favorite format is title at the top, date, time. Then on the side over here, I like to put the attendees. So I like to separate them out by agency. So in my case, most of the time, we put the client first, then the stakeholders, subconsultants, and then primes, which is usually myself and my company. And you would put the name of the attendees either with their role or the position for that specific projects if they have one. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're there just as supporting staff. As well as the agency that they're coming from. So you make sure that everyone understands who's who. I also like to add the purpose of the meeting. So the first thing right under the attendees is purpose of meeting or just purpose or objective or whatever it is. It is very easy to leave that off of a meeting, and you can, especially nowadays where all we do are meetings, we can easily lose sight of the purpose of our meetings. And if I'm leading a meeting, I usually like to read the objective of the meeting out loud. Sometimes it's just a coordination meeting, and this is a coordination meeting for X project to move towards the next submittal. But I always find it so important and beneficial, because usually when I get added to a project, I'm not starting a project from the beginning. I'm starting from somewhere in the middle, or, towards the end, or somewhere in the timeline of that project. The content of my meeting summaries. My favorite thing to do, grab the freaking agenda. Grab the agenda. You're gonna use the agenda titles as kind of subtitles for the summary. Hopefully your meeting isn't running around, jumping from place to place in the agenda, or not even hitting the agenda items, and you're actually following the content of the agenda to where you can do this. And you can literally use those subtitles as a way to organize yourself, essentially, and know where you are in the meeting timeline. I like to do this because it saves me a lot of time, and two, it really shows that the agenda was purposeful and we got through what we needed to get through. So I've picked a format where I can use these agenda subtitles. And what I do now is I bold in red the action items. When I'm writing down action items, I usually identify them by putting AI, action item, and then I write the action item. I like to call out people. Sometimes I've worked with clients that are kind of sensitive about that, but I'm very big on accountability. So instead of saying a drainage engineering team does this, I like to call out the name of the lead of the drainage team, and then, in parentheses, drainage team or whatever is going to do this, because that way you ensure that you kind of embed accountability into your meeting minutes. It's one of my favorite things to do, because of the next meeting, I don't just say, did this get done? And it's like into a void, a black hole, and nobody raises their hand. But I can actually say, hey, John, did this get done? Or did we have anything else to coordinate on this? And that brings accountability. They know that maybe they're not the person that had to provide the answer, but they were the person who went and made sure that the appropriate person provided the answer, and they could bring an update to the meeting, which is usually how meetings should be run. Your lead should be bringing updates from their team. So it's not like a 50-person meeting. Although lately, because we're all on Teams or Zoom or whatever we're using, our meetings end up being very large. The next formatting tip that I like to do is I put decisions in italics. So action items are in red, decision points are in italics, and I make sure that I put who made that decision and the date that the decision has been made, so that you have some backup documentation for yourself, to protect not only yourself, but also your client from when things change, and we can understand when potentially the scope is changing, or why a decision was made. One thing that's very important to remember is that meeting summaries aren't just this busy work that you can put onto the intern and forget about it. Meeting summaries are really important because they do document decisions, action items, real things that need to happen in order to have a successful project. We're investing millions of dollars onto these projects, and we should take it seriously. Another thing that I would say is important is not using bullet points, instead using either numbering them or lettering them, because when you are discussing meeting minutes, or really any document, this is true of any document, you want to be able to point to the specific comment or sentence that they're referring to. It's just good practices, really. All right, so now I am going to go over how I do my informal notes. One of the things that I am very, I don't want to say OCD, but I'm very adamant about, is to bring your notebook everywhere you go. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO, you're bringing a notebook everywhere you go. You're going to a meeting, you're going to a staff meeting, you're going to, a conference, whatever it is, you are just going to go get a task from your lead, which that should definitely just be an obvious, I need to bring a notebook. Bring a goddamn notebook. I don't know, if you want to do your laptop, do your laptop. I'd be kind of annoyed with that, but I understand that, this generation is more of a typing or writing on your iPad or whatever it is. So I bring my notebook everywhere I go and I take notes in it consistently. I also take notes when I am not in charge of meeting summaries. So that's probably something I should have said early on in this video. I only take meeting summaries and meetings where I am either the deputy or the person that is assigned to take meeting summaries in the formal way, the formal format that I've explained. If I am just a participant of a meeting, I don't take formal meetings. I take notes in my handy dandy notebook, or I take notes on OneNote. And they're just bulleted quick notes that I take for all my projects. So I guess there's two ways where I have informal notes. I have my OneNote that has tabs at the top for each project, and then you can do pages within those tabs. And I usually have a page called meeting notes. And so what I'll do, I'll put the title and the date of each meeting, and I'll just do bullet points on there. I'll show what that looks like here so that you can get a visual. And the other thing I do is I always have my notebook next to me, and it's the same thing. I also use my notebook for a lot of different things, not just in meetings. It could be for tasks that I get on emails. It could be for me to remember something. It could be for me to jot down bullet points of things that I want to talk about during a specific meeting. So whatever it is, I always have either my notebook or my OneNote available, and they're kind of just together. OneNotes I use more when I'm in very heavy meetings where I can't just, write down in my notebook things that I'm listening to. It's more of I need to be really paying attention and doing all this stuff so I can provide a work plan for when I get out of this meeting, whatever that is. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video on how I take notes. I know it's a very kind of duh, Carla, I know how to take notes kind of video, but I like to share my little productivity hacks. And honestly, if someone had taught me how to do this earlier on in my career and taught me how important notes can be, how to format them, all of that, I think it would have helped me a lot with my efficiency and my productivity. So take these as little productivity hacks, I guess. And I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.